I was sitting in my study the other morning, looking out at the Tennessee mist rolling over the hills, holding a warm cup of green tea between my hands. It's a quiet ritual I've kept for years. But as I watched the steam rise, my mind drifted back to a conversation I had decades ago with my father. He was a man of immense grit, the kind of man who thought that acknowledging a physical ailment was a sign of character flaw. He worked through the pain, ignored the warnings, and looked at food as nothing more than fuel for the engine. I remember him sitting at the kitchen table, dismissive of any talk about nutrition or prevention. To him, those were words for people with too much time on their hands. He paid a heavy price for his pride, and I spent a long time carrying that same stubbornness in my own marrow. It wasn't until much later, when I saw Eleanor, my steady, resilient Eleanor, facing her own mountain of health challenges, that I realized how wrong we had been. When you cross the threshold of 60 and then 70, you start to realize that your body isn't an indestructible machine. It's more like a finely tuned instrument that's been played for a very long time. It's beautiful, but it's delicate. And the most haunting realization I've had in these later years is that the body actually warns us long before it sends the bill. The problem is, most of us have spent a lifetime learning how to ignore the whisper. Lately, I've been diving deep into some research that honestly disturbed me. It kept me up for 2 nights straight, pacing this room, looking at my notebooks. I found myself looking at the way we approach the most feared word in the English language, cancer. For most of my life, I thought of it like a lightning strike, purely bad luck, a stray spark hitting a dry forest. But what I've learned recently is that while we can't control everything, we have been handed a set of keys to the fuel shed that we've been told don't matter. I've heard so many people my age say, "Warren, my doctor told me it doesn't really matter what I eat as long as I don't lose weight." It breaks my heart to hear that. I'm not a doctor and I'll never claim to be. I'm just a man who has spent 40 years in communication and the last 15 connecting the dots that I wish someone had connected for me when I was 50. When a professional tells you to eat whatever you want because the damage is already done or the treatment is all that matters, they are ignoring the most sophisticated defense system ever created, your own biology. You see, I've come to understand that our bodies are hardwired with 5 specific health defense systems. They are like the invisible sentries guarding the walls of a city. When cancer finds a foothold, it's not just an attack. It's a sign that these sentries were either asleep or more likely starved of what they needed to stay at their posts. And the most empowering thing I've discovered, the thing that gave me a sense of peace I haven't felt in years, is that we can activate these sentries with what we put on our forks. I want to talk to you today about how I've changed the way I protect my cells now that I'm 77. This isn't about a strict diet. I don't have the patience for those anymore, and I suspect you don't either. It's about understanding the hacks, the small, deliberate choices that starve the risks before they can take root. The first thing I had to wrap my head around was a word I could barely pronounce at first: angiogenesis. It sounds complicated, but I like to think of it as the body's plumbing system. It's how we grow blood vessels. Now, normally your body is a master plumber. It sends blood where it's needed to heal a wound or keep an organ healthy. But cancer is a master manipulator. It hijacks this system. I read a study that genuinely chilled me to the bone. It showed that the moment a tiny microscopic tumor, one we all might have in our bodies right now without knowing it, successfully hooks up to your blood supply, it can grow 16,000 times larger in just 2 weeks. It's like feeding a weed with high-octane fertilizer. When I realized this, I started looking for anti-angiogenic foods. These are foods that essentially act like a picket line, preventing the cancer from setting up its own private plumbing. I'm talking about things I already loved but started eating with a new sense of purpose. Tomatoes, for instance. I used to just put them on a sandwich. Now I know that when I cook them down into a sauce, I'm releasing lycopene, which helps starve those rogue blood vessels. I do the same with berries. Raspberries and blueberries are staples in my house now. And my morning tea? That isn't just a comfort anymore. I've learned that green tea contains compounds that are specifically designed to keep that plumbing in check. I'm telling you this because I want you to feel the same agency I felt. You aren't just waiting for a diagnosis, you are actively making your body a hostile environment for anything that shouldn't be there. Now, there's another layer to this that I find even more fascinating, and it involves what they call cancer stem cells. Think of these like the seeds of the weed. You can mow the lawn, you can pull the leaves, but if the seeds stay in the soil, the weed comes back. This is why so many people face the heartbreak of a recurrence. The doctors got it all, but the stem cells were hiding. I used to think there was nothing you could do about those seeds, other than hope the heavy-duty treatments got them. But then I found out about purple potatoes. I know, it sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But there are natural pigments in those potatoes, anthocyanins, that have been shown to specifically target and kill those baby cancer cells in the colon. When I told Eleanor about this, we started making a point to find them at the market. It's a small shift, but every time I eat them, I feel like I'm doing something my father never knew he could do. I'm cleaning the soil. It's about more than just the food, though. It's about the how. I think back to all those summers in Ohio, standing over a smoking grill. We all did it. The smell of charring meat is practically the scent of my childhood. But I've had to be honest with myself about the science I've encountered. When that fat drips onto the coals and that blue smoke rises, it's carrying chemicals, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, if you want the technical name, right back onto the meat. I haven't given up grilling, but I've changed my protocol. I clean those grates until they shine before I start. I don't let the black char from last week's dinner touch today's food. And I've started marinating everything in citrus or tropical fruit juices. I learned that the antioxidants in a simple pineapple or lemon marinade act like a shield, neutralizing those carcinogens before they ever reach my plate. It's a small hack, a bit of grandfatherly wisdom backed by hard science, and it makes a world of difference. I want to take a moment here because I can sense some of you might be feeling overwhelmed. It's a lot to take in, especially when we've spent decades being told different things. If you're finding this helpful, if you feel like this is the kind of conversation you've been missing, I'd love for you to stay with me. Many people who watch these videos haven't officially joined our little community here yet. Just take a second to check if you're subscribed. It's my way of knowing that these late nights in my study are actually helping someone on the other side of the screen. I want to make sure we keep walking this path together. Now let's talk about the gut. We hear so much about gut health these days that it's easy to tune it out. But I want you to think of your gut microbiome, those 39 trillion bacteria living inside you, as your body's internal pharmacy. When those bacteria are happy, they produce something called short-chain fatty acids. I like to think of inflammation like a brush fire. We all have some of it as we age. It's the inflammaging we talk about. But cancer thrives on inflammation. It's like pouring gasoline on those embers. If your internal pharmacy is stocked with the right bacteria, they release substances that act like a fire extinguisher, calming the system down. How do I keep my pharmacy stocked? It's not through expensive pills. It's through fiber and fermented foods. I've become a big fan of lentils and chickpeas. I've even started eating kimchi and sauerkraut, much to Daniel's amusement. He still remembers me as the guy who only wanted meat and potatoes. But I've seen the data. I've seen how a healthy gut can actually make cancer treatments, like immunotherapy, work better. There was a study out of France that really struck me. They looked at patients who weren't responding to the latest cancer treatments. Do you know what the difference was? They were missing one specific type of good bacteria called Akkermansia. And you can't buy that in a bottle. You have to grow it. You grow it by eating pomegranates, cranberries, and even mangoes. I spent years thinking that fruit was just a treat. Now I see a pomegranate as a concentrated dose of protection. Every time I peel one, I think about those 39 trillion helpers waiting for their Margot to arrive. It's a completely different way of looking at a grocery list. It's not about what you can't have. It's about what you can recruit to help you. One of the things that really bothered me when I first started this journey was how little my own doctors seemed to know about this. I remember asking a specialist years ago about diet, and he just shrugged and said, "It won't hurt, but it won't really help." I realized later that he wasn't being dismissive out of malice, he just wasn't trained for it. Most medical schools only give a week or two of nutrition in 4 years of study. They are trained to be mechanics who fix the car after it crashes. They aren't trained to be the chemists who keep the fuel clean. That's why I tell my friends, and I'm telling you now, you don't need permission to take control of your internal environment. You have to be your own advocate. If you want to know if your internal pharmacy is working, you can actually get a microbiome test in the mail. You do it at home, send it back, and they tell you exactly which helpers you're missing. I did it, and it changed the way I shop. I took those results to my doctor, and he was fascinated. We ended up having the best conversation we've had in 10 years. Sometimes we have to be the ones to lead the way. I also want to touch on something that we often overlook as we get older: our DNA protection system. We tend to think of DNA as something static, like a blueprint locked in a safe. But our DNA is constantly being attacked by environmental toxins, stress, and just the process of living. Cancer is, at its core, a mutation, a mistake in the copying of that blueprint. Our bodies have a repair crew that goes in and fixes those mistakes. But as we get into our 60s and 70s, that crew gets a little slower. They need better tools. I've found that foods like broccoli sprouts, the tiny 3-day-old versions of the vegetable, are like giving that repair crew high-powered drills and extra coffee. They contain compounds that powerfully stimulate our body's ability to fix its own DNA. I grow them right on my kitchen windowsill now. It's a tiny habit that feels like a massive layer of insurance. And then there's the tree nut discovery. This one actually made me laugh because it's so simple. A study of over 800 people with stage 3 colon cancer, which is a very serious stage, found that those who simply ate 2 handfuls of walnuts or almonds every week had a 57% better chance of survival. They were getting all the regular treatments, but the nuts provided the healthy fats and fiber that tipped the scales. I think about my father again. He would have loved that. He loved walnuts. If someone had told him, "Dad, this isn't just a snack, this is you helping your immune system stay in the fight," he might have listened. I make sure I have a bowl of walnuts on the side table now. Every time I grab a handful, I feel a little bit like I'm correcting a mistake from the past. I know some people worry that if they start focusing on food as medicine, they have to give up everything they enjoy. But that's not what I'm saying. I still enjoy a good meal. I still have my comforts. But I've learned that it's about the additions as much as the subtractions. It's about crowding out the risks. If I'm going to have a piece of fish, I make sure it's an oily fish with those omega-3s that my brain and my cells need. If I'm going to have a side dish, I reach for the brassica family: broccoli, bok choy, or kale. These aren't just vegetables to me anymore. They are bioactive interventions. They have substances in them that naturally starve cancer cells. When you look at your plate that way, you stop feeling like you're on a diet and start feeling like you're a general preparing for a battle you intend to win. I've also had to learn about expectations. This isn't a miracle cure. If someone tells you that eating a blueberry will cure cancer overnight, they aren't being honest with you. This is a long-term strategy. It's about shining up your defenses every single day. I think about Eleanor when she was going through her toughest time. We didn't stop the medical treatments. We followed every word the specialist said. But we augmented her. We gave her the Iron Man suit, as my grandson would say. We made sure her gut was supported, her inflammation was low, and her cells had the raw materials they needed to repair themselves. It wasn't food versus medicine. It was food and medicine. That's the balance that I think we all need to find. I've spent a lot of time in these last few years looking back. I think about the friends I've lost, the neighbors who did everything right but still got sick. It's easy to feel like we're at the mercy of a cruel lottery. But what I've found in these notebooks, in these studies, and in my own body is that we have so much more power than we were led to believe. Your body wants to heal. It wants to survive. It has spent millions of years evolving these 5 defense systems: angiogenesis, regeneration, the microbiome, DNA protection, and immunity. It's not asking for much. It's just asking for the right hacks, the right tools, and the right attention. I wake up every morning now and I check in with myself. I drink my tea, I eat my berries, I plan my anti-inflammatory day. Not out of fear, I'm done with fear. I do it out of a deep sense of respect for this 77-year-old vessel that has carried me this far. I want to be here for Daniel's next project. I want to see my grandkids grow up and find their own way in the world. I want to sit on the porch with Eleanor and watch 100 more Tennessee sunsets. I'm telling you all of this because I wanted someone to tell me. I wanted someone to say, Warren, it's not too late. Your cells are still listening. You can still starve the risks and feed the hope. Envelhecer bem, aging well, truly begins with what you stop ignoring. It starts with realizing that the small things on your grocery list are actually the big things for your longevity. You don't need a PhD to understand that a purple potato or a handful of walnuts is a vote for your future. You just need to pay attention. I hope you'll take a look at what's in your pantry today, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, which of my 5 defenses am I feeding today? It's a powerful question, and once you start answering it, everything changes. I'm going to head back to my notes now. Eleanor has some fresh raspberries waiting in the kitchen, and I think I'll go join her. There's always more to learn, and I'm glad we're in this together. The body always warns us before it collects. I'm just trying to make sure that when my body speaks, I'm actually listening. And I hope you are too. Take care of yourself. You're the only you we've got.